Let's move. Blades of justice. We stand as one. Are you gonna give me orders?
We are now ready to hop into Serral versus Vanya. Still a David versus Goliath story, even with the ZVZ, even with, you know, I guess the not totally unbeatable Serral that we're seeing. It's still going to be really tough for this guy in the top right of Eternal Empire. He is Vanya.
On the bottom left of Eternal Empire, one of the big favorites for this entire tournament. Normally wins every tournament he participates in. It is Serral. Serral in lower bracket round 1. I feel like that's an introduction I haven't done very often. Maybe even never, for as far as I can remember. But like I said, I'm really expecting a better Serral to show up. Of course, Vanya is not Elisa, but Vanya is really good. Obviously, he qualified for TSL. We didn't invite him because we thought it would be cool to have a Russian player in this tournament. No, he did it of his own skill. And I think ZVZ is one of the matchups that he's slightly better in as well. I think ZVT is traditionally his weakest matchup because he is a little bit all-in-y. For the people who are not that familiar with Vanya, like I don't think he's as extreme as Bly, but I would say he's like a mix between Bly and Elisa. You know, he's like somewhere in the middle of those two. That's kind of how I see him. And obviously, it's really hard to catch Serral off guard in the best of 5. But I do think he's going to take a map. I don't know if it's going to be more than that, but I'll give Vanya a map. I don't know which one. We're about to find out.
Yeah, I said 3-0 on my official prediction, just kind of to throw a 3-0 in. But it wouldn't surprise me for a map to be taken. I mean, it really is those two things combined. ZVZ sometimes allowing for those quick wins. I mean, drone pool first, spawning pool first, right? Like, it can happen. But then on top of that, Serral is not so indestructible as his Pastel. So I can believe, but I'm sure many people would say Serral 3-0.
Yeah.
Just don't know much about Vanya, but he proved us all wrong in his ZVT. Took a game off of TY. At the very least, not expected. I'm sure he could do it versus Serral.
What a tournament bracket for Vanya, by the way. It's like, congratulations, you qualified for TSL. You get TY in upper bracket round 1. It's like, well, I mean, that's just unlucky, right? Well, Serral, lower bracket round 1. It's like, oh, come on, can't this guy catch a break? If you guys ever wonder if it's hard to break into the pro scene, well, here you have it. This is the kind of stuff that up-and-coming players have to deal with. What I was mostly shocked by last week, other than obviously that Serral did kind of throw that game 4 really hard, is also the builds that Serral chose, right? It wasn't just Elisa playing weird. I actually think Serral was the one making it a weird series, and much more than Elisa was. And this is something that Serral has done more and more over the last year. And obviously because he's super good in pretty much every single aspect of the game, he gets away with being weird and cheesy as well, because people also don't expect it. But it's not the Serral I love to see. Like, sure, I think it's cool that he's switching it up and that he's not predictable. And I get that that has his advantage as well in the pro scene, but I love the Serral that just scouts and reacts and believes that he is the best, like, Roach against Roach player in the world, because that is what he was for a very, very long time. Perhaps still is, who knows? We haven't seen that many super long, high-level, important ZVZs of Serral over the last few months, but he's been a bit off, right? It's been weirder. It's not been the same Serral as we saw in the past.
Yeah, it almost looks like he thinks that he can no longer rely on super macro, which I still think that he can, but he has been mixing it more up with the typical all-ins, but also weird stuff. I mean, we were casting that Stay-at-Home Story Cup series where it turns out, Zug Lang had given them a couple of builds.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, sure, yeah, I guess. Or are they good? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know why he's mixing it up. Maybe taking the opportunity online to do so, but still have a lot of faith in his macro, and he is doing that this game. Both of them pretty even here so far. Roach Warren to Roach Warren soon for Vanya. Lair to Lair, +1 to +1. Nothing too surprising. No Lings even trying to get an advantage here.
Nope. Serral actually went for the slightly quicker Lair. It's obviously not massive, but it's a solid 15 to 20 seconds ahead. And that's something they can maybe rely on. In the past, I always felt that if there's one thing that Serral didn't really like in ZVZ is when the other player had Mutas, right? When he was forced to just sit back forever, get Spore Crawlers, get a lot of Queens, and basically give up the momentum, give up map control. I had the feeling that's something that Serral was never that comfortable with in ZVZ. And we'll see if that's going to appear at all in this series. Like, I'm sure that Vanya loves to play Mudas. I'm sure I've seen it before as well. I wonder how this is for Serral as well, right? It's like, okay, I've got Vanya. Obviously, he knows Vanya. They played against each other actually just once. Earlier today, I referred to a series where I was like, I remember it was like the second phase, but it was the Intel Extreme Masters qualifier. They had to qualify for like phase 2. And in the first round of that qualifier, Serral and Vanya played against each other. Serral won, but it was a 2-1. There we have a Nidus network, by the way, going down for Vanya. Feels like a weird time for a Nidus, but we'll see if he gets something done with it.
A +1 attack with Nidus. I mean, sure, yeah. I don't think I've seen this before, but yeah, when we expect like that all in, we expect like earlier, maybe not with an upgrade type thing. I was going to talk about how it might be possible that Vanya tries to play Spire just to, one, yeah, Serral has had some weaknesses against it in the past, but like it's also like a occasional weakness against Raynor as well. Raynor doing a lot of Spires, but I also thought he would just like change it up so he wouldn't have the same units as the guy who was probably better than him. But a Nidus Worm kind of does the same thing at the very least. It like hopefully you're building units when they're building drones, right? But I don't think he's actually catching Serral fast enough. A 5-worker advantage here for Serral is not enough of a disadvantage in army supply for him to just straight up lose.
That's obviously a good Baneling connection there for Serral, but Serral didn't scout it yet, so Serral started +2. Now, +2 is not going to be done in time, at least most of the time it won't, unless this fight just takes forever. At this point, Vanya is going to start being aggressive on the other side of the map. His army is a bit bigger, but I often feel like to win a ZVZ fight going upper ramp, it needs to be more than just a bit bigger. It needs to be a lot bigger. Vanya's going just really deep. He is decisive at least, jumping right on top of this army. He wants to get on top of the Ravages, but he doesn't really get close to them yet.
12 more Roaches are on the way, and Lings were on patrol in the main base. Serral knew that he could bring them down to help out, but then that would open up the main. So he's taking care of that. So maybe now he could bring them down. But with all the Roaches popping, with more Queens on the way, I guess he's feeling very confident with this. He did cancel the +2, but now he's actually restarted it. He's feeling so confident with his defense.
Yeah, he doesn't have that many Roaches left, but he still has these Ravages, and they're all full on HP, and they should stay safe on creep, of course. They're pretty fast as well. As long as Serral doesn't make any big micro arrows here, this should be a pretty convincing hold. And I think that he analyzes the situation in the exact same way, and that's why he started at +2 again.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit dangerous. If Serral had made 5 more, 10 more drones especially, he would have been in a very bad spot. If he was late to building the Ravagers, so he didn't have any, perhaps, to help out this engagement. Those were all things that maybe would have pushed Vanya over the edge with the pretty quick reinforcements of a Nidus Worm. But Serral he always seems to have just like enough at the right time to make up for anything that you would think would be a weakness. Having more drones, not being in position. He's actually totally fine, even though Vanya's still trying. He's going to be behind in workers and behind in upgrades. I guess he's going to try and continue to play out this game, but it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah, I gotta say, really good movement on the Ravages this game by Serral, right? A couple of times, it almost felt like, Vanya, you should go for it. And then you could see that Vanya wants to go for it, but then the moment he gets a little bit closer, Serral moves them just an inch further back, and that makes it almost impossible to go for them, because if you then dive for those Ravages, you lose all your Roaches in the process, and now this Nidus gets sniped as well, which means a couple of Roaches are left behind. Serral will be able to pick those Roaches up as well, and this seems like a pretty convincing game 1 for Jonas and Tala.
I do like that Vanya went for a Spire, but you know what I like more? Serral also went for a Spire. I don't know if he's thinking this will be the way to really cinch the game and get an easy victory, or I'm going to take this option kind of away from you. If we both start making mutas, but I'm in the better position, then I'll just have more mutas. I actually scouted it, so regardless if that was the start of his Spire reasoning, but he started it first, right? Yeah. Now he'll know even to build a +1 Carapace, and well, yeah. Everything goes Serral's way. Maybe moving out to attack as well. He might actually be able to do that since they'll be building around the same number of mutas.
The only thing that Vanya really has going for himself is that he has a slightly quicker fort base, which also means he's going to be able to use that rich Vespian gas, or extractor rather, and that's going to give him more gas income so he can start building more mutas. But don't forget that Serral still has that massive Roach advantage, and of course has the upgrades in favor on these Roaches as well. So Serral's going to shut this gas down before Vanya even made 2 or 3 trips from it, and I don't think Vanya is going to be able to keep this base alive. The mutas are just a little bit too late, and I love what you said. A lot of players like to play different units than Serral, because don't just make the exact same. Serral's like, well, no, we are going to make the same units, and I like that. And I think that's something that he's always been very comfortable with.
Yeah. Vanya possibly hoping that these mutas will start a snowball effect, jump on top of the 4th, get some damage done. Even if Serral is about to go up the Hydralisks, no, it's his own mutas, which I think he might have just scouted there alongside letting the Lings into the natural base. GG. It was kind of a determined outcome. Took another minute and a half, but I do think it was all the right moves to bring a comeback game. It was also all the right moves from Serral to stop any comeback from happening.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said if Serral would have made just 5 more drones, if Serral would have squeezed in slightly more economy, then there is a good chance that this does catch him off guard. And obviously these attacks snowball really quickly because Vanya can reinforce with the Nidus. But no, Serral stopped with like 5 workers more than Vanya had, and then that's absolutely perfect. At that point, you have defender's advantage. And sure, Nidus networks reinforce quickly, but so do 3 hatcheries on your side of the map, and all these units just being rallied straight into the battle. Just a very solid game from Serral, and that's kind of what we expect from him.
Absolutely. It's what I think he'll do for most of the games, but I also am still thinking he'll like mix in 1 early pool or something, just to kind of take control, maybe get a quick 3-0, as I think that's his own expectation, is 3-0ing. Not out of disrespect for Vanya, but just like, I'm Serral. I am really, really good. I am going to 3-0 everyone. Maybe not a laser, but mostly everyone. But Vanya, I think he has other tricks to throw out here in his EVZ. There are plenty of tricks, really, to throw out in his EVZ to mix things up, to make things different.
Yeah, the next map is going to be Nightshade. Now, Nightshade is obviously not massive, but it's definitely not a small map either. It is a map where we've seen a couple of the weird 12 pools in the past, with drones being pulled as well, spine crawlers being built. Vanya is absolutely capable of those kind of strategies. So is Serral, but I just don't think Serral is going to do that. Maybe if this was an upper bracket match, I think there's a good chance, you know, I mean, best of 5, you can definitely lose a map and still be fine. I think lower bracket, tournament live on the line, Serral is going to be all business, and maybe not the perfect word, but I think a word that kind of describes it. I think Serral is going to be boring. Like boring, but really solid. Just make sure that he doesn't put himself in any risky situations.
That's like every hater from Serral. That's their excuse.
No, well, I don't agree with that at all. I think the opposite was true. When Serral was on his insane tear, I thought it was anything but boring, and I love just basically everything he does. But in a series like this, I think boring is a perfect approach. Why make things weird? Why make it crazy? You're freaking Serral. I mean, you're one of the best to ever do it. There's no need to make this funky or weird.
I don't think there's any need to. Maybe if you want to have fun. He has been listening to his...
I think winning is fun for Serral.
yeah. If that's true, then he's had a lot of fun in the past 3 years.
I think he's a happy boy, Chess. Don't worry about it.
All right, Nightshade, as you said, can have those weird games. No early pull here. In the bottom right, has the blue Zerg. He is Vanya.
Of course, down 0-1. In the left top side, one of the best to ever do it. Hailing from Finland, it is a Serral.
Okay, a bit tricky from Vanya then. 16 pool.
Yeah. Unless he's approaching this like I'm the favorite and I don't want to get cheesed, but I don't know if that's the mindset he has going into this best of 5.
I don't know about that. It is interesting though, because usually if we see something coming out more aggressive in the early game, it is not a pool first. You know, it's either a really fast pool first, you know, 12 pool, 14 pool. It includes gas, or it isn't on one base. It's like a 2-base Lingfla or something like that. The fact that it's a pool, then hatch, then gas, actually kind of makes me feel like he is being defensive. Show Lings, but yeah.
He's just being very safe over here. He's like, you know, as long as nothing weird happens, I'm going to be able to tie up this series. That seems to be Vanya's approach. Now, there's still many ways he could take this, but so far, you know, obviously his hands are kind of tied, right? There's only so much you can do with this opening. His gas is going to kick in quite late, so nothing super funky early game, but we'll keep a close eye on it. I actually don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I guess it was defensive. I mean, Nightshade, you talked about it. There are a lot of drone pulls on this map that have happened to Serral, by Serral, so maybe he was thinking this is the one map, you know, not the situation necessarily, but the one map he would do it. Well, not so much. And Vanya doesn't even make any Lings to kind of give an initial scare to Serral. Which is probably better off in the long run. But yeah, he just did the defensive opener. It's actually Serral making 6 lings after, I guess, scouting the late hatchery. But he would know the exact hatchery timings of X, Y, Z, of 12 pool, 14 pool, 16 pool, you know? So he only has to be so scared of this. He may actually be trying to punish what he assumes is more drones. Yeah, a 2-base Baneling Nest with a decent amount of lings. Well, it goes back into droning. Okay.
This is very safe.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I think,
guess...
Oh, there we go. 242 lair. Right.
Okay.
All right, Vanya. That's the Vanya I know. Serral's gonna run a couple of circlings into the main base. 1 ling goes down, but the second ling is going to scout this super quick lair immediately, and that's obviously massive.
And he could now just make a bunch of lings and try and punish this. You know, he was just playing very defensive, having seen the late hatchery. He doesn't know if that gas was with the pool or not. Now he does, and now he knows that it's nothing for another 2 minutes. It's layer plus whatever that layer is going into, which seems to be a Spire with no Roach Warren down. Something that Serral is going to be able to recheck here. But his options...
He canceled it. He canceled the lair.
I don't know if that's actually the right call. I mean, if he had baited Serral into building 30 lings, he's now walled off against, then... maybe, but he'd still be really behind on his 3rd hatch, which he still is behind on his 3rd hatch. All in with Roach Baneling?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only choice, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you ever cancel the lair? I feel like Vanya is almost overcomplicating this a bit for himself, right? It's very easy to get lost in your own mind games, and sometimes you kind of forget to play StarCraft, and you're just thinking too much about what your opponent could do or what your opponent is possibly thinking after certain things that have happened in this game. But Vanya now has put himself in a very straightforward position. He needs to win the game with Roach, Ling, Bane. Unless he doesn't even make Roaches and he's just going to pocket 1,000,000 Zerglings, and this +1 missile attacks is a complete fake.
That seems to be what it is. I mean, a couple of Roaches can be included for sure, but you don't actually want that +1 missile. He does cancel it when the Lings are just out of range of seeing it. Alaris started, but more importantly, Serral canceled Ling speed, and he canceled his Baneling Nest.
Jess, Serral only has 6 army supply. Here comes Vanya. A lot of additional Lings on the way. There's going to be a lot of surface area on these evolution chambers, and they don't have that much HP yet. Banelings are going to be morphed as well. Can Vanya break through quickly? That's the big question here. The first Roaches are on the way. First Evo goes down. Queen is going to take some real damage already. That one Evo on the left side of the Queen actually is regenerating HP quick enough. Here come the Banelings. Obviously, time is ticking. Okay, Vanya gets in, but does he have enough Lings left, though, to really start picking up all these Roaches?
I mean, they're still being funneled in a little bit, so not the best of rounds. Good Ravager micro as well, and drones even being pulled into this. He has a 3rd hatch. He has 13 more workers. All he had to do was hold, and that's exactly what he does. So Vanya does shift to the 3rd base, which should go down. There's not enough Roaches to go out comfortably against this amount of Lings, and more to come as he sees with his Overlords. So Serral's going to have to let that one go, but he actually pivots into a Spire. Vanya's probably thinking the same thing. He is going for +1 melee. He's not going for his Roaches still, but his Spire is going to be much later.
Wow, Serral just cancelled his +1 missile attacks. And now he starts it again.
Because he's taking it as well, I think, right? Like, he could maybe afford +1 missile and Roach speed, but maybe he's faking it because he doesn't want the Spire to be revealed.
Okay, but if he did fake it, why is he building it in a different Evo chamber?
Okay, maybe it was just a weak Evo chamber. Like, it
was. Maybe he was afraid he was going to lose it. That could be the case. He's like, it's already kind of low HP, and there's a good chance that Vanya does a follow-up. Now, Vanya is going to be the one with +1 melee, and if this turns into Muda against Muda, I think having Ling upgrades is slightly better than having Roach upgrades.
Sure.
This is going to be a funny game because, sure, I think Serral's still in a good spot, right? Because he has the quickest Spire. He's been mining slightly more gas. But Vanya seems to... I kind of like Vanya's spot, actually. I believe there is some serious potential in this game for Vanya.
Yes, 3rd hatchery's done. Hasn't mined very much, but it's about to. Taking the gases as well. Something that Serral is going to be just behind on is the 5th and 6th gases. And that's the biggest deal when it comes to the Muta play. And on top of that, yeah, the Lings on the ground being upgraded are going to be very scary. The Roaches are plentiful enough that they probably don't get surrounded by that, but they're going to have to be careful. The Mutas being this much faster should cause some damage, but let's not forget that also gives Vanya the advance notice to get +1 Carapace. For Serral, he's not even continuing to dedicate with his Mutas. He's going to stop that.
Do you think Serral's going to hunt Overlords, or is he going to just run towards the drones? Okay, he's just ignoring all the Overlords. The only thing I'm a bit worried about for Vanya is that he gets supply block. No Spore Crawlers. They felt a little bit late. There is a Queen there. That one Spore is getting HP very quickly, and I think the Queens will buy enough time for this Spore Crawler to finish up. I mean, Vanya was ahead in workers. Now he's going to be down a couple of workers. I would have loved to see Vanya try to make a play, but Vanya is about to build way more mutas than Serral even has. Serral does start +1 carapace. Did Serral see the spire?
I think he just figured it out by the amount of lings. Oh, he also saw it.
He saw it. I mean, he's good, yes, but he's not that good.
The officer got him there. That's a nice scouting. So he has to be wary. I think he would know that there's a potential that there are going to just be more mutas. His opponent had access to more gas and minerals since he'd have to build roaches and a faster third, right? So he's being cautious. Maybe confident his +1 carapace is faster, but that carapace upgrade only makes a difference when in 1 it's done. And 2, if you don't have a significant muta disadvantage.
Yeah, obviously Serral has been up in workers for the last minute and a half. It's a 7 worker advantage, and that's a pretty big deal if you're building the exact same units. Vanya making a mistake there, going for an overlord, ends up losing a muta list. At this point, the muta count is 12 apiece on both sides, and obviously that +1 carapace is almost done. Vanya really wanted that overlord. He does finally get it. I feel like the lings are the game changer here, right? There should be potential in this many zerglings with +1 as well. Like, if those lings surround those roaches, don't forget that +1 missile attacks did finish up. But I mean, that's still a lot of zerglings. If not all the roaches in the same place, those lings can win the fight for sure.
I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't try doing something earlier. I mean, they can run away from mutas if they're found. I thought they would. You know, at the very least, get in that third base, kill a couple of drones, or at least keep tabs on the fourth. But allowing Serral to not only get a third saturated better than you, but also to grab a fourth too. Any advantage he might have had with his third base being up against his opponent, I mean, it quickly disappeared. Serral was able to match the economy, and now his economy that would have boosted his muta numbers is also no longer there. Serral is going to be able to have better numbers and a better upgrade if the fight happens. No. Vanya, do not take this fight.
Vanya, why? It's like 10 seconds before your upgrade is ready. You cannot take this fight. You're on Serral's side of the map, and there are queens there. There was a spore crawler that did some damage. Now it's ready. Whoa. Maybe turn around and fight. That is exactly what he's going to do. Chess, it's close.
Yeah, well, Ling's got into the main and natural base while this was going on. The roaches, I mean, they're pretty fast at responding, but a lot of chaos happened as that was going down. I guess Vanya was more so setting up his Ling run by than he was clicking on the muta upgrades, which, I mean, still, unfortunately, those Lings not quite worth any bad trade there. They kill 7 drones. Muta count's still very similar, and it's still 4 bases to 3. Well, maybe not very long.
A couple of extra mutas showed up a bit quicker for the Serral, though, and that could very well make the difference here. It's still incredibly close, but it feels like the mutas of Serral had slightly more HP, but Vanya is starting to win this muta fight. Now, obviously, queens are going to help out as well, and Transfuse even lands, and in the end, Serral barely sort of wins the fight. But that was much more of a trade. But obviously, with all the links going down, that means that these roaches now suddenly have a lot of potential on the ground, and I don't think that Vanya really has much to deal with it.
Yeah, they're also soaking up any glaive worms, which can help out. The muta numbers, maybe helped out by queens that have to be pulled forward right now for Vanya to even hope to survive. But the roaches take care of the lings super easily. And Vanya, I mean, he really did change the way this game was played. It was such a weird, wacky game that Serral is even going to win this one. 3rd hatchery under fire, 10 drones already killed, and he's going to just go ahead and reinvest in the mutas and win that war.
Obviously, Serral now... No, Serral cancelled, actually, his +1 flyer attacks on the mutas. It was more than halfway done, but he decided to cancel that. Maybe panicked a little bit that the fight got closer. Serral ends up losing all the roaches, but he killed 15, 16 drones in total. That should normally be enough. At this point, they're dead even on mutas. They're kind of dead even on upgrades. The only difference is that Serral has missile attacks and Vanya has melee. But there is a 15 drone advantage on the side of Serral. And that's something you gotta feel very, very comfortable with if you're him.
Just give it 30 seconds and he'll be way higher in the muta count. Could also afford to go for +1 again. I'm with you. I think maybe he was a little bit scared when it looked like he was losing that fight. And now he can go back into it. And there's not much coming back from these scenarios. Like, Vanya could try and go for a desperate infestation pit. Or even just, like, reinvest minerals into lings instead of mutas and hope that, like, run buys and keeping him on the side of the map might work out. But... it's not really supposed to be winnable from here. Muta numbers to muta numbers. Person who has better mutas, they win 9 times out of 10, unless some really weird other thing is happening.
Yeah, I think Vanya was maybe hoping that Serral would take a bad fight near a Spore Crawler, but that obviously did not happen. Serral takes the 2-0 lead, but that was a pretty fun and exciting game on Nightshade. I gotta say though, kudos to Serral how he defended that Link flood early on, right? Because he had 6 army supply, he had 3 queens. I think that was it. When all of those links were storming to the other side of the map, very very quick with rewalling, getting a couple of Evo chambers done, and then buying enough time for the roaches, and eventually even taking the fight when the Brute Link showed up of that Evo chamber as well. That went down. I think Serral showed some great crisis management there. But even from that point on, I think Vanya made it a pretty exciting game.
Serral had to respond to like 4 different change-ups, and with his own play not being super standard either, he was like, I'm going to get you on the mutas. Aha, wait, no, we got Lings to deal with. But I will say, for me, the most disappointing thing is that Vanya didn't really get to use his Lings, because as much as the muta numbers being higher usually means you win a game, when we were back on the good old days of muta versus muta all the time, the Lings could often be the highlight, especially if they were upgraded. When they're on the ground, they help with the glaive worms. If it's an even muta fight, they can, of course, distract and get on top of gas geysers and queens, so injecting becomes an issue when their opponent just doesn't have as many Lings. We didn't get to see that dynamic, even though Vanya, I think, had a chance. He didn't really try with his Lings. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't. But I don't think we even really saw him try until that big run by really late into the game.
Yeah, I think there was one moment where Serral spread himself thin across 4 bases, and he had a couple of roaches at the top side and then a couple of roaches at that base in the center. I think that was the moment that maybe the Lynx could have gotten a really good fight against the roaches and then maybe get it snowball. It felt that Vanya went for all the damage, all the chaos, right? A couple Lynx in the natural, a couple Lynx in the third, a couple Lynx in the main base. But I don't know when you play against Serral if going for all the chaos is really what you want, because if there is anything that Serral I think is good at, it's putting out multiple fires at once. So maybe it would have been better to just go for one big Ling attack where Serral was a bit out of position and then try to get a lot of damage done with the Lynx in that way.
Yeah, maybe. That was a tough game because Serral really did not fall behind as much as you would expect. Like, one of those things that happens in a game like that is just through indecision. The guy defending is going to fall behind, but Serral is not a very indecisive player. He usually just chooses what to do and goes for it, and he's usually right about what he's going for. So Vanya, I mean, one of the trickiest games you could have thrown out to Serral, and still losing it, and now he's down 0-2 as we head into simulacrum. Never going to be used to saying this word. In the top left, down 0-2, he is Vanya.
And in the bottom right, looking at the main base of the man who's up 2-0, which is, of course, what most of us expected. Hailing from Finland, it is Serral. Hashtag easy for Rens.
Yeah. Well, this might be a bit easier than his match versus a laser. But, you know, a laser has also been... We have a lot of cool stories in this tournament. Ooh, 15-15 this time for Vanya. Ooh, it's actually really nice. You know what? Forget about storylines. This is cool because...
No, I like storylines. Go ahead. We'll talk about this early pool and gas soon. Tell me the story.
Okay, fine. Yeah, okay. But anyways, I have cool storylines because obviously after Katowice, there's a lot of questions about a lot of people. Is Clem actually really good? You know, is it just a fluke or time? Can he actually perform in these tournaments since he didn't make it to Katowice? Or Laser, he says he's in a really good mindset. He's like working out and he's feeling really good about the game. Where does it all like come into a test? And TSL is a great test, and we've seen all the answers to all those questions. The Laser is feeling really good to take out Serral, and Clem is looking about as dominant as we hoped he would be, you know, a year ago when we were talking about this guy. Yeah. Now let's talk about the builds. Okay, like, it's really cool that Vanya is trying to make a build look like something he already did, but actually be aggressive.
This time there is a very quick gas. This time his Zergling speed is going to be very quick, and he's still mining some gas behind this, and that gives us obviously the idea that he's going to slap down a Baneling nest as well. We'll see when Serral figures this out. Let's keep an eye on that Overlord. That is so close. What? Okay, somehow that Overlord did not see those Zerglings yet.
So if he slap... Okay, so he's going to slap down a Baneling nest. You don't keep your guys in gas if you don't. But what's really nice about those Lings circumventing the Overlords is that they are going to be able to turn into Banelings. It's also nice because Serral just doesn't know he's committing to Lings. Always good. But they can turn into Banelings without his knowledge. Before that third Overlord even, like, ideally sees them. It's headed towards the left, but hopefully Vanya realizes that's very common and doesn't build his Banelings there. He's still got a couple more seconds on that Baneling nest, but if this is this is the best chance possible. Unscouted, saying, yeah, it's totally like last game. Don't worry. I think it could do really well, but, you know, Serral, he was playing defensive last game too, and he finds no reason not to do it again here. Good timing.
Yeah, but he's going up to 3 bases already, so that means that he definitely hasn't put it all together yet. Now, Serral's playing somewhat safe because he's getting a very quick bailing nest,
right.
But he already goes up to 3 bases. That's something you normally don't have to do because he's up 9 workers. He's going to evacuate the low ground. I am not sure if he really knows what's up. I think he's reading this as just Zerglings, but it's not just Zerglings, it's Zerglings and Banelings.
That's a good point about the Banelings, but he did see the Lings coming forward. That was the quick pull on the drones. So Lings pop out.
Vanya.
Taken out, but the Queens, can they actually hold long enough for Serral's own Banelings to form? He also needs more Lings. This might just end up working out. The Banelings are headed right towards the drone line. That is going to be a big problem as Serral decides to split. Actually going for the less drone kills there. Not too bad. In fact, up workers, yet still. One more looking for the kill, not going to find it, and Lings have popped out for Serral now, so the snowball effect is not going to happen here for Vanya. He's going to be forced to pull back, but no, he's going to continue committing. He is all in here. Thinks he might have the chance.
Serral did lose all the queens, right? Normally the queens are something you can really rely on in defending moments like this. Good job there by Serral getting a cancel on one of these Banelings. This is going to be it. If I was Vanya, I would have maybe gone for the 2-for-2 trade there. But instead he's going to wait, and that means that more Banelings will come out. I mean, I feel like the ball's in Serral's corner at this point. Is Serral going to make a mistake? Most of the time he doesn't, and I think if he doesn't make any mistakes, he's going to be in a pretty good spot.
Exactly. We're assuming he doesn't make any mistakes, of course, in Ling Baneling. That's not always the case, but for Serral, so far it is. Yeah, that's a bold move, but he has enough Banelings back at home to feel confident to do that.
It's a very risky play. I mean, it might play off in a very big way. We'll see about that. It's just pretty much Banelings at home. Vanya is going to see a couple of Lings of Serral right now on his side of the map. The Queen does almost get surrounded, but there's so many Banelings here. How did Vanya get past all these Banelings? I have no idea. Baneling makes it into the main base. That's a lot of drone damage, and I think this is finally sort of enough for Vanya. At this point, he can just play out the game.
Oh, no. Oh, one more Baneling looking for a kill.
Oh my god.
Does get a couple more that were very, very weak. That was exactly what Vanya was looking for. Serral was not supposed to take that damage, and I guess, you know, sending those 6-ish Lings across the map would have been more helpful back at home. Vanya now going to take the opportunity to start his own drones as he's finally got Serral down by 2.
Yeah, but that's something, right? It's so funny as well, because it wasn't just that Serral was down by 2, but all of his other drones were like on 10 HP, and even that Queen was on like 10 HP as well. So it really felt that Serral barely had anything left. In the end, he still sort of has enough left, but now it's Serral who's really putting himself in a position where he kind of wants to get something done with a Baneling. Vanya, don't mess up right now, because Vanya's playing a great game so far. He's got defensive Banelings. This is it, Vanya. Now you're going to get tested. Don't mess up.
Yeah. 4 Banelings usually is a decent amount, but said the same thing for Serral. Still ended up losing. You got to wonder where the Lings of your opponent, though. Vanya's going for the same counter that Serral had in mind, but hoping to find maybe still low drones. They've pretty much all healed up.
I mean, that Queen is so low. I think if Vanya would just settle for the Queen here, in the end, this game is now sort of going to stabilize. And I think that's obviously a good situation for Serral most of the time. But it got exciting. It got really close. I have a smile on my face because I always loved when the underdog does well. And of course, I'm a big Serral fanboy, but I like Vanya's playing well, man. Like, I can only imagine that he's probably feeling a bit nervous. Obviously, a big stage. You're playing against one of the biggest names in the game. But his link control and the way that he avoided those Banelings is really cool stuff.
Very good link control. Actually gets... this is more for a scout anyways, like maybe a drone. But the scout is good despite the Baneling hits. Also, I mean, determining if you can slap down that third hatchery, both of them, you know, don't necessarily want to be the first one in case there are 40 Lings prepared. And it's not even Serral with the third hatch. He's going up to a lair with the gas that he's taking. Vanya could also do the same thing. He's gone for 4 Banelings instead. So, all right, he's not missing out on the economy. They both have, you know, overlords watching that third. But he might miss out on the tech unless he goes for like a bigger Ling swell than he's doing. Unless he actually just builds Lings nonstop.
Vanya's got so many Banelings at home. Yeah, Serral's really thinking about the next phase in this game. Vanya's thinking, he's like, no, this is Ling Bane, right? Oh, 4 Banelings, don't do that. Okay, so far so good for Vanya, but Serral's doing a really good job in salvages as well. I mean, drones low in HP, sure, but Serral doesn't actually end up losing any of them. And obviously, that was an investment of 4 Banelings. So very well done there, I think, by Serral.
Vanya really would have been better off trying to get a scout, you know, as or just cover for a Ling. He needs to he's got to start wondering, okay, it should be around a time for a third, or a Roach Warren at the very least at the front of your base, and I don't see it. He does see now, at least 2 more gases being taken, and that should be continuing to raise red flags here, but I don't think he can do very much about the Spire, even if knowing about it. Well, actually, if he builds nothing but Roaches right now, okay, that's exactly what he's doing. So, all right, that's the test. A Roach Ling attack against a Spire that is currently building. What actually does better? Oh,
this lair
is that a fake?
Yeah,
it's gotta be a fake.
This is the fakest lair I've ever seen. Not even Vanya believes that's a real lair. Right? Hello? Yeah,
I would assume so. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, come on. All right, here we go. Now, Serral obviously is not buying it either, so he throws up 3 Spine Crawlers immediately. Can the Roaches, Lings, and Banelings make it to the other side of the map before the Mutas are out? And even if the Mutas do come out, will they be out in high enough numbers? Look at this, 4 Spine Crawlers. Serral's taking this very serious.
I don't think the Roach attack will work. I thought it would if he did it instantly, and he basically did, but with 6 Spine Crawlers now going to be completed, Vanya, of course, with slow Roaches, yeah, this isn't going to be what Vanya wanted. Maybe he can still kill enough drones to really play out the game, get a Hydralisk down or a bunch of Queens back at home. Because Serral can only afford so many Mutas to start things off, but it's not going to be able to bust Serral. Can he do enough damage?
It almost would have been good if that fake lair was a real lair, right? And imagine Serral builds 6 Spine Crawlers, and then you're just building a Spore per base, and then the Mutas are going to have kind of a hard time. This seems like it's pretty unbreakable. A couple of Banelings in the mix there for Serral as well. Those won't connect, but how are you going to kill 6 Spine Crawlers and 8 Mutalisks that are on the way as well? I mean, maybe if Vanya gets like 10 plus drones here, you can say like he can play it out, but that's so hard. That's a really good Baneling connection for Serral. Most of the Banes disappear from Vanya, and I think just that this is going to be it. Roaches are good, but they ain't that good.
No, not against Spine Crawlers, which are really good against Roaches. The Banelings ideally are, exploding on them when they're all clumped together, but instead Serral got a 2 for 6 trade, I think.
Yep.
That is going to be that. Serral with the 3-0 over Vanya, despite all of the tricks that Vanya did. I really liked what Vanya was doing, man. I don't have any qualms with how he played out that series. It's just that Serral is so good at knowing what his opponent's doing.
Yeah, it felt maybe... I mean, this game, there was potential, and he was so close. It almost felt like that final Baneling after that initial skirmish, where it's like, okay, the dust is settled, but Serral is left with a Queen that's on 10 HP and like 7 drones on 10 HP as well. And it almost felt like maybe just make 1 more spell of Lings and just try to go for it, because just a couple of seconds would be enough, because they were on 13 workers apiece. It was that even. I enjoyed it. That was a really fun game. In the end, Serral obviously having a good read on the situation. And if you talk about taking an attack seriously, 6 Spine Crawlers on 2 bases, I think that's showing all the respect that you can potentially give any attack.
Yeah, the earlier Baneling S2 really coming in key for that defense of the final game. Serral did not take any chances, not really, this series, so GG. It's going to move on, whereas Vanya will say goodbye.
We stand as one.
Are you gonna give me orders?